Okay, so my talk today, I was asked to speak about getting beyond the mindset that blocks the missional imagination. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emily Hill, and I'm the Parish Development Missioner for the Diocese of Niagara. In addition to my role at the diocese, I also have the privilege of teaching occasional evening courses at Sheridan College. This semester, wait till you hear this, I was invited to teach a course called Social Innovation and Social Entrepreneurship. Okay, all you church people, before you stop listening because I've said the word entrepreneurship or innovation, please bear with me as I tell you a bit about how these insights from this world of social innovation apply to the missional efforts of the church today. So, social entrepreneurs learn to look at systems overall. Rather than treating the symptoms of issues within a system, they seek out the root causes and look for solutions to address them. Our parishes, this on the top right is a picture of my own beloved parish, St. John the Evangelist on Locke Street here in Hamilton, are systems. They're a system of interconnected parts and people and resources. But we also belong to larger systems. So the Diocese of Niagara here down on the left, the province, the national church, the worldwide Anglican Communion, and then also the church at large. The systems that define our reality as the Anglican Church were created during Christendom, a time when the church had a central role in society, shaping laws, culture, and daily life. During Christendom, Christianity was deeply woven into governance and social structures, making church participation more of a societal expectation rather than a personal choice. However, as we transition to a post-Christendom and now a post-secular age, many of our inherited church systems no longer align with the realities of today's world. Despite this, we often continue to view the world from inside the church through the lens of Christendom, attempting to address challenges by making small adjustments to symptoms rather than, oh, and this is the word, Drew said he hated it, reimagining the system itself. Breaking free of the Christendom lens that shapes how we see the church and understands relationships with the world is no small feat. Borrowing from Charles Taylor's notion of the immanent cultural frame, my colleague Ian Mobsby and I have developed a chart to illustrate the many ways that the Christendom-shaped frame keeps us from thinking and dreaming missionally. While we recognize that the chart I'm about to show you simplifies a very complex system, and you might have a gazillion things you would add to it, you might even argue with some aspects of this, but that's okay. We present it to you just as a way of helping us to think through where we have been and where we're going as churches. So the chart might be a little bit hard to read depending on the size of your screen, but I can also provide it at a later point to you. So the current mindset, this is something I use with churches. It's actually contained in our mission action planning. There's a list on the left that's kind of a current mindset, and not all of these things appear in every church. Not all these things appear in every diocese, but there's different combinations of how these appear in different ways. So focused on doing faith. Focused on doing, faith is defined through activity. And the missional church focused on being. So many parishes I work with, there's a lot that they do. We run this program, we do outreach in this way, they're doing. And then I say, how are you spending time in the presence of Christ? Faith is about knowing God through head knowledge. And faith, instead of faith being about experiencing God through heart knowledge. Somebody at a conference I was at once said to me, I fear we've been doing Sunday school wrong. We have been teaching kids about Jesus, but we've not been teaching children how to have a living relationship with the living Christ. So building money and resources are major sources of stress, whereas building money and resources, while sometimes stressful, are actually blessings. Remember, Bishop Susan talked about blessings in her talk that are used to live into God's mission. So there's often a sacred and ordinary split, whereas the sacred and ordinary life are connected. What we do in worship, prayer, and faith formation is deeply rooted in the way we lived. So the Missional Church focused on growing disciples of Christ, not just on offering programs or social services. And it's outsider oriented. I think we've heard a lot about that in the last couple of sessions. So seeking the common good of the community and building relationships with those who have never been part of the church or who have left. The Missional Church embraces healthy risk-taking. It's generous and abundance-oriented. And faith is trust in an interventionist God who actively intervenes in the world, guiding us, answering prayers, shaping our world, shaping our mission. It's focused on mission as tending to the spiritual needs of people in the neighborhood, not just the physical and material needs. And it partners and does things with others in their communities. So this is a chart that we sometimes use. And with parishes, I'll often say, choose one thing on the right-hand side of this chart. Sometimes I don't even show them the left. It's overwhelming to see the ways that often I don't show them the left. I just show them the right. I say, what is one of these things that excites you to do? And then make a plan for doing more of that. Whether we're a parish thinking we need to adapt, or a diocese, or ourselves in our hearts, it's really difficult to think outside the framework that has defined our ways of being. It's easy to get caught in the things we are not, how far we have to go. It can feel like, oh my goodness, please don't tell me we were completely wrong about how we've been doing things these years. No, you weren't wrong. We weren't wrong. Culture outside the church has shifted, and now we shift too. Being faithful to God often means changing, adapting, and growing. It's part of who we are as Christians, even if it's uncomfortable at times. As Lisa mentioned in the chat this morning, she said, we, church people, are tempted to default to what we know. This is so true. So how do we move from a current mindset to the missional mindset? This is where we get back to my social entrepreneurship class. You thought I'd left that, didn't you? As we go, I'm going to present some approaches taken by social entrepreneurs. And I want you to think of the stories of the missional practitioners we have heard from on Thursday and this morning. I will also be illustrating how Jesus exemplifies this approach with the Samaritan woman at the well. If you're not familiar with this story, it's in John 4, verses 1 to 42, but I believe many on this call will be familiar with the story. All right, let me find, there we go. So social entrepreneurs and missioners, anyone who's engaged in mission, the missional imperative, must move fluidly between ground level realities and the big picture. When Bishop Susan gave her talk on Thursday evening, she asked, do we know what story we are in? Another way of saying this is to keep your eye on the particular context you find yourself in and the bigger picture. That ability to move from zooming in on the particular to zooming out to the big picture. When Jesus met the woman at the well, he saw her immediate need. She was physically thirsty, but also her deeper thirst for belonging, truth, transformation. He zoomed in, engaging with her where she was at, but he also zoomed out, revealing God's greater vision when he said, the hour is coming when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. As missioners, we must do the same. Be able to see the individual or situation in front of us, while also keeping in mind God's greater work of transformation in the world. We must not get caught up in the dailiness of running our parishes or our dioceses. that we lose sight of God's movement. We are called to get on board with it. We are called to both zoom in and zoom out. The second thing is balancing compassion and challenge. This is one of my favorite pictures by a group called Sanctified Art. They're awesome. I purchased this one for digital use because I find it amazing. Jesus and the woman at the well. To shift something about the existing system is often painful and hard won. You see, no one likes to move out of the established order. Even if the order is no longer uncomfortable, if it once was, we cling to it. There's an element of mourning that's in our parishes. This is not to be dismissed or downplayed. We need to both acknowledge that change is difficult and sad, but also push forward with it. Jesus did not shame the woman at the well for her past, but gently spoke a truth to her. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. He didn't avoid this difficult fact, but neither did he let it define her. Instead, he offered her living water, an invitation to transformation. Mission requires the same balance. We must acknowledge the grief and loss that come with change, while also boldly inviting people into a new way of being. We've heard a lot about this. This is another image from Sanctified Art. It's called You Ask of Me, the Samaritan Woman at the Well. Creative solutions often come from those outside traditional structures. Social entrepreneurs and missioners need to cultivate relationships with people who do not normally fit the mold of priest or church leader or Anglican or Christian or any of those things. We need to be talking to our neighbors who have no connection to faith communities and working alongside organizations in our neighborhoods. In this time, when Jesus was speaking to the Samaritan woman, especially one with a complicated past, that would have been unheard of. Yet Jesus entrusted her with a message, and the Samaritan became the first evangelist to her people. She said, "Come and see the man who has told me everything I have ever done. Could this be the Messiah?" We must embrace the empower voices from outside traditional structures. Sometimes the most effective leaders, partners, and allies are those that we least expect. We've heard a lot about this too. Listening is vital, but so is movement. When we engage in what Michael Garner on Thursday called action listening, a rhythm of hearing and responding, we don't wait for the whole plan to be ready. We take steps forward in faith, trusting that God is guiding us. Jesus didn't wait for the perfect moment in this interaction. He could have chosen differently. He could have followed cultural norms or waited for a more appropriate time or place to reveal his identity. Instead, he engaged right then and there. His words and actions led to an immediate impact. The woman left her water jar and ran to tell her village. Mission requires this kind of urgency. We listen, but we also act. We don't wait until we have a perfect strategy. We move forward in faith. And this is the final lesson from our social entrepreneurs. Another favorite image from Sanctified Art. You can tell I've spent some money on their website, totally worth it. Failure, so normalize setbacks and celebrate wins as part of the journey. Failure is not a verdict on our worth. It's an opportunity to learn and refine. Missioners persist despite critics, and they find joy in small victories. Change is a marathon, not a sprint, and along the way, celebrate the signs of life. Jesus stayed the course. We know he did in many difficult moments. The disciples, when they saw him talking to the woman at the well, they were confused. They said, "Why would you speak to her?" Yet Jesus remained steadfast. And because of the woman's testimony, we know that many Samaritans from the city believed in him. There will be doubts, there'll be setbacks, there'll be critics, but like Jesus, we must celebrate every step forward. Even small moments of transformation are signs of God's kingdom breaking in. Okay, this is my favorite quote from the Social Entrepreneur Handbook we're using for the class I'm teaching, because it applies so much to missioners. Being a missioner requires sensitivity and bullheadedness, humility and audacity, restlessness and patience. So I've been using the term missioner, and you might be thinking, well, isn't that just your title, Emily, or Ian's, or a few select people who work for the church? But no, that's not what I mean by missioner. I mean anybody who's involved in the mission of God today in the way we've been talking about it in the last couple of days. Many people believe that you're simply born with an entrepreneurial spirit, naturally creative, able to generate new ideas and bring them to life in meaningful ways. In the church, we often think about that the same way about innovative ministries. Wow, we say, they have something I don't. I'd like to be Ingrid, who runs Wild Church, but I'm not like that. I'd love to be Andrea with her bread circle, but no, I can't even imagine reaching out like that. Drew and that story he told about just tapping neighbors on the shoulder and inviting them to go for wings and creating a community of vulnerable men who share their lives. Wow, those are special gifts those people have. God just did not give me those gifts. But that's not true. Don't listen to the voice that says that. Being missional is not an innate talent. It's not some special gift. It's a muscle that we must exercise to grow. Just like faith, it is strengthened through practice, risk, and trust in God. When I work with parishes that want to become more missional, I encourage them to start small. That's okay, Choose one of the characteristics of a missional church. Maybe it's prioritizing being over doing, or seeing the blessings we have, having abundance over scarcity, or engaging with the wider community, and commit to practicing it. The shift doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay. The movement is slow. The Spirit sometimes works with speed, but she also sometimes works slowly through steady faithfulness. I like what Ingrid Brown said. The kingdom of God is built at the rate of relationships, which is slow, often slow. And here's the good news. God is not waiting for perfect visionary leaders. God is simply waiting for people who are willing to say yes, to step out and trust and build relationships. If you're here on Thursday night or today, that person is you. This missioner is you. Step out, trust God, step out in faith. I love what Andrea said when her friend said to her, just go and do it. Stop talking about the missional bread circle you want, do it. Try, adapt, and just. You're not alone. We're doing this together. I'm proud of you and all of the things we've heard today, all the great discussion.